So the way I work is coming to a place and responding to what I find. What's in the air? And what's on the ground? And what are the materials? What's the history of a place? And from all of those things, they get woven together to become a project. Oh my goodness, look at these. I love them. The project starts in your intuition about things in response to what you find. So my very first visit into this space and walking the distance and clapping and listening to the incredible delay. It's like the air is compressed differently and you walk through that threshold and you feel that. The building is under historic protections. While it's robust, it has its vulnerabilities structurally. It's cleaned up, but it's raw, so it carries all the history without the machines actually being here. One of the first structures of the piece that helped me take the next steps from what is this going to be to something tangible was thinking about this space. The center needed to be held by song or sound. That's what then brought me to be in conversation with the vocalist, composer, whistler, Emily Egan. We recorded with Emily in the spinning room. I was really drawn to the older ballads, where she would whistle or hum a thread of something where I didn't know what that was from, but there was a sense of recognition. Finding the old horns that we think were used to make announcements in the mill. Responding to that and then recording with the incredible patience and extraordinary ears of David Critchmore. A little bit like the moth to the flame, like, what are these? And it's only over time understanding that those things that you find have the possibility to come forward and be a central figure in the work. I first came to visit Bradford really from a distance. I think there's always that incredibly wonderful feeling of buoyancy that comes from feeling the sense of possibility. You're just trying to sense what is here and what you might find. I think the opportunity to work side by side with people in a place you don't come from, it's the part that I love. When you write a letter, it's usually silent, right? And you're writing mostly to somebody who's not there. Dear future, what do you need to know from where I am now? The teachers had done an amazing job of sort of doing exercises around the idea of the letter. They're full of hopes, they're full of sensory memories. They're very beautiful, written by hands that are still learning how to form letters. The invitation to sing to the future was already in the conversation, and we could draw vocabulary to begin the process of composition. So we're going to make a record. The feeling of a hug, friendship bracelets come up. This is a huge gift to the project. You're the first letter writers.
what we're going to do is work with some of the words in here. We're going to make a new song, but from something that you already know into something for the future.
Memories in my pocket.
Memories in my pocket. So who wrote about Grandpa's jacket?
One of the ideas we're bringing to this is that if you put it in song, it lasts longer. It has like a longer thread. It's just beautiful the way that they made up a little melody that you could tell comes from a child, a little playful and shapy, and then they started weaving their words together. That's like the essence of songwriting that I think is really fun.
My fluffy blue blanket reminds me of home.
Blanket that reminds me of home, and then everyone's.
It was a really wonderful collaboration at Barnabas with the Armchair Aerobics group. So we had very different generations. The song came from what they'd already been doing.
A lost diamond, a broken ring, a rose petal, a song to sing. Shells and stones, a sound of rain, a penny, a box, and an old keychain. Someday remember.
One of those records is the 18-minute composition that comes from the workshops with Sangeet and the schools and the toddler program. And the sound moves around. There's a little bit of a call and response in the structure.
When did you start building these?
70 years ago.
70 years ago.
Yeah.
When you were a kid in your basement?
Yeah. Previous to that, I was Edison phonographs
Yeah.
and gramophones.
It's amazing that you're here.
Yes.
When I first visited Salt Mills, there's an antique shop in there. You don't even know where to look because there's so much stuff. Each of those things that have ended up in that shop at some point were special to someone, but now they're not with that someone. Just like 1,000 objects, like trying to draw your attention. It really kind of started me down this road of thinking, what is it about in the age of the selfie? Making a representation of ourselves and how far back that goes in time. I mean, I think one of the reasons I was attracted to these objects, they're figurative. You recognize them as figures, but they're not particular people. These pieces are called fèves, and they are baked into king's cakes. And if you're the lucky person that gets the piece of cake with the fève, then you have good fortune and luck for the year. So I think about them as figures of luck or figures of good fortune. You know, they're all a little damaged looking. They're cast from a mold and then that they're hand painted. So you might have some of the same gestures and figures, but how they get painted with these tiny little brushes makes each one different. These little tiny figures of fortune then in the project are rendered quite gigantic. How you feel your own scale when you stand next to them in the space. With each passage of light over the surface of contact with the object, an image is made. I love the transformation, you know, I love the kind of not knowing. She's quite something, huh?
The woolen industry, which connected Bradford to the global world from the beginning of the industrialization of textiles, is still really here. Wool is grown, and we call that a raw material.
Like if you see it like this, you know, like when it just like spills from the bag, like it's like, oh, the body has come out. I want to see if we can do that with this structure, which comes from the mill. Look at that.
Because you've also got different textures in there as well.
Yeah,
so you've
exactly.
got that one's actually really fine in comparison with that one, for example, here. That's like a really coarse breed, and this one's actually a finer, bulky. That's great for cushions. There have been a few iterations as we've gone through our discussions, from raw fibre to component product and how they actually might be able to bring those together, and also the areas within the installation.
See, this is where you have that literacy in your hand that I'm kind of looking at it more visually.
Yeah, of course. Beyond sustainability, regeneration, and also a product which is natural, biodegradable, renewable. It's a fibre of the moment, a product of the moment, and I think it allows us all to tell a story.
Non-sustainable materials in many of the objects that we live with can be replaced with the most sustainable material of all, which is, you know, the wool from sheep. In a digitally saturated world, we are still tactile organisms. The incredible, beautiful drape of the alpaca wool and the mohair wools that I couldn't keep my hands off of. It evolved as we figured out, how do you hold the far length of the spinning room space? How does that actually meet the architecture? Because you could build a whole structure and have a curtain, like a theatrical curtain, but it's like understanding how that needs to be with the structure of that space changed what it was really fundamentally. And so now the lengths of fabric are hanging as a curtain off the backside, but off the front side they split, and then they're tethered in the space by a stone weight. And they're tied to that weight. And that's, for me, a reference to the first warp-weighted looms. There's so many things we can only know through touch and through the hand. And that's one of the things that really brings us so into the world of textiles. We have these beautiful wool capes that have been made from the incredible fabric at Halstead's. Over in the corner you saw that we have the capes, and then in the far spinning room the large curtain which you custom wove and dyed for us. David and Chris we're in. That sort of has followed the project in a wonderful way. So.
The essence of Bradford is continue in the future. Using the fabric from our mill is part of an ongoing story rather than just heritage story.
The project is always so rich. There's so many sources. But you can't bring that necessarily into the project. So we're making what we're calling a commonplace newspaper, or a newspaper commonplace for the project, and it's a form for sharing that. And I love the scale of the broadside. You know, it's like, it just fits the body like the way this space does. It isn't a single hand, it's the collective hands that go into weaving this whole project together. You know, the invitation to come and work in a place is to be with it. And, you know, what you hope is that it's made out of all those little exchanges that happen, and that I carry them off, and that they're also in the people that I work with here. This is not a finished thing that's fixed in its form, but something that continues to actually be alive. And it's the aliveness that will come from here.